Hey everybody, my name is Paul,
And I'm Vanda.
and this is Business as Usual. This episode, Vonda's going to pick the topic, and today she wants to tell us about some interesting things that she found out.
Well, I don't know how interesting, but definitely very curious. So I saw a page about celebrities fighting over inheritance.
Oh boy, here we
That
go.
kind of piqued my curiosity. Like, why
Hmm.
are celebrities fighting over inheritance? And so, yes, let's sip a little tea and get some of the gossip on who is not doing the right thing with their money. What's that about?
Hmm. Yeah,
Well,
celebrities,
I mean,
they tend to just, I think they get bored, so they fight about stupid, petty stuff.
mm. Or even setting up their own inheritance. I'm trying to. I want to find the article that I saw. It was very, very interesting, and I was kind of like, yeah, it piqued my interest. What do you do? How do you not set your affairs in order, or make sure that you've got financial specialists helping you with your finances when you've got millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in?
That's
A little
true.
crazy.
Yeah, some people don't realize that the millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires, how much money that actually is, and how much it is to work with. Did you know if you made $10,000 a day from the time of, I think it was Jesus, until now, you still wouldn't have $1 billion?
And why is that, do you think?
Well, the reason is because it's math. And technically, if we, let's see, I'll do a little calculation on my calculator here. Um, so Jesus passed away in 33 AD, right? So 2021 minus 33 is 1988. So that's 1,988 years times 365 days on average in a year. Um, is that right? No, that's wrong. Yes. Yeah. Times 10,000. Yeah, times 10,000. You would. I think that's wrong. I did my math wrong. But anyway, if you do the math right, you only get about $900 million. You don't quite reach $1 billion. So if you think of these billionaires like Jeff Bezos, and he's worth, how much is he worth now? Like 50 billion, 100 billion.
I don't know. I wanted to say a little shy of a trillion, but possibly.
Well, his ex-wife, got her got her chunk of the change when they divorced. I think they divorced,
As
right?
I'm sure she well deserved.
Well, behind every successful man is a woman kicking his ass. It's,
There you go.
you know,
Right. What is it that they say? You may be the head, but I'm the neck. Okay.
there you go. That's a good one. I've never heard that before.
Right.
So,
The men, you can be the head of household, but the women are the neck. And so, you can't turn and twist without them.
right. So, yeah, I mean, when you have that much money, and celebrities, I mean, are a fraction of the net worth of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. But even with $1 million, if you have $1 million, what do you do with that? That's a lot of money to handle. And, imagine you have seven figures sitting in your bank account right now. What would you do with it? What
That
should you
makes
do
me
with it?
can't have seven figures sitting in a bank account. Number one, it's just crazy talk. And I recently met a family. Okay, well, we can talk about that.
Okay.
So I met a family that has close to $1 million sitting in a checking account. So dad was a mogul in the farming industry.
Mm.
And here's a really interesting story. Okay, I think we've got our topic.
Okay.
So I always talk about legacy. I am the Jameson Legacy Group. I always talk about legacy. And here's a perfect example of a family that I did not work with. They won't hire me because they insist on figuring it all out themselves, but they have no expertise or background in the area of money. So I don't know what that's going to lead to. They won't hire anyone, just not even me. Just hire someone that who is an expert in your needs. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here's how it goes: is that apparently the great great grandfather was born to is a black man was born to a white woman who was the wife of the master who owned the plantation in Alabama.
Hmm.
How incredible is this? And so that great great grandfather, it might have been a great 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 grandfather, I'm not quite certain, but that great ancestor um, was received the land as an inheritance.
Right.
So what happened is that the master apparently left the wife when she had a bastard child that was black, and he
Mm.
left her with the land. And so she ran the land and raised her son on the land. And when she passed away, it became that great, great, great grand's land. And
Mm-hmm.
so here it is. I've met a gentleman who is that ancestor. That's the legacy. That's how they received 300 acres in the South.
That is a lot of
And
acreage.
so that's a lot of land. And so the family has, for generations, the land has been used for logging.
Mm.
Now, if you're not familiar with the value of logging, it really is just the finesse of growing trees. And I believe that every 20 years you have a harvest,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the trees are cut down and put on trucks, and they are so it's the assembly line. But for those 20 years, it is your responsibility to till the land. And I believe that they had streams and cows, so they had other farming going on. But the
Mm-hmm.
biggest income was made uh, through lumber, and they could yield anywhere if the harvest for lumber was satisfactory, they were able to yield anywhere from two to $300,000. Uh, I believe somewhere between 200 and maybe let's say, yeah, 200, 300,000. So you're looking at a quarter million every 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Plus you're farming. They've got cows, cows are worth, I don't know if you know that, but cows are worth thousands of dollars each.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just to purchase the cow. So if you're actually, you've got chickens and you're doing farming, you're getting milk and you're getting, so you've got business, you've got income coming in from this land.
Mm.
And so how do you leave that legacy? Like, it was really interesting that the gentleman that owned this property raised three young men in the city in the northern part of the states.
Mm.
The land was in the south. But what he did was when he retired, he moved to the south and he began to till the land. And so he'd been taking care of this land, which is the legacy, right?
Mm.
Very, very important to him. Well, his sons are not interested in the land, and the man is now ill and cannot tend to the land. So now the land sits there. They have not been cropping the land. They have ravaged the property, sold all of the farming equipment, gotten rid of the cows, taken all the money for themselves. So when it comes to, you don't have to be a celebrity to be in trouble when it comes to inheritance and legacy. So how do we move forward? Like, it's great that we're building, but I look at this family and apparently the parent that is ill has great income coming in,
Mm-hmm.
but their children have no interest or clue or education around how to handle money.
Right.
Because if they did, there would not be hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a check. So
Mm-hmm.
this is where I say, like, inheritance. What does that look like? I started out with, like, what are celebrities doing? And then it popped into my brain that no, there are folks out there that look like you and I that have inheritance or that have family, family legacy, and they don't know what to do with it. They haven't. So in this case, the family, I think only one of the sons was really taught about the land, and that's because he was banished to live with his parents for so many years for his own issues. You know, they got rid of him and sent him to live down with the elders, let's say. So he
Mm.
learned a little bit about farming and what to do on the land and how to handle the animals and how to run the tractors and who the farm hands were and how they got paid and it's also very interesting. And so you've got three children that were all sent to college. They all got cars, you know what I mean? They all got their choice of living the best life. There's an amazing home on the property for all of the sons and their grandchildren. And yet, no one is interested in continuing this legacy. Their only concern is the immediate moment of the financial, um, benefit.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, so sometimes I have these conversations with the family that will not last forever. So how do we hold on to our millions of dollars so that they can continue? So you were just saying, yeah, that's not a lot of money, but here we are in the 21st century, and I can hand you an incident where this is still happening. We don't even have to go back to Jesus Christ. We can just go back to a few generations. Folks are not learning what to do with their money. And, our ancestors worked really hard. And back
Hmm.
then, hard work was hard work. I look at what we do now and what folks call hard work, and it's like, yeah, you've worked 13 hours in your office of, acoustics and vending machines and coffee and sometimes beer and wine and air conditioning and a great view. And, you're working hard. And I'm like, there was a time when hard work was physical labor and really like hard work, grunt work. So
Hmm.
we don't have to work like that, but our ancestors, some of us, especially if we're immigrants, our ancestors have. And how do we preserve that? What are we doing to preserve that? And, so I'm always up in arms with, are we teaching our children? Because here I've met three grown men that don't have a clue, don't have any interest in maintaining their legacy or even thinking about their children
Hmm.
and the legacy. They're thinking about their children now,
Right.
making sure their children have all the finest and the Camaros and I'm just like, well, how are we going to maintain this fortune that the great 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 grands that our ancestors? So yes, there's inflation. To answer my own question that I asked you, why does why do our financial balances diminish over time? Inflation is real.
Hmm.
So if you look at all of those years that you were trying to do the math with, and let's add anywhere from 2 to 3% inflation every year, you end up with a significant loss over 10, 20, 30, hundreds of years.
Right.
So that's one reason.
Hmm.
And then not learning, not knowing. And we live in a society that isn't really teaching us firsthand. We get to learn, geography, but we don't get to learn money. So anyway, sadly enough, here we are in the 21st century where this is still happening. And folks are not, we're so concerned and we're in this capitalist society where it's all about how much money can you make? And I'm all about how much money can you keep? How do we do that?
That's true.
How do we keep the money?
Yeah, there's a term called old money, and that term comes from the fact and the result of families teaching their children and their children's children correctly about how to pass on that legacy and keep things going. Here in Altoona, Pennsylvania, there are, I think, 4 or 5 very powerful families. We have the Sheets family. Have you ever been to a Sheets before?
No. Oh yes, the
Hmm.
Sheets. It's like the
It's the
the
Wawa of.
parlor gas
Yeah.
station, coffee shop or something. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, Sheets. Steve Sheets owns
It's
the
cool.
company with his brothers, and I mean they're a multi-billion-dollar, privately owned business. They won't sell. They won't give an IPO or go public because
Good for them.
they want to maintain control of that.
Good for
Um,
them.
of course, I don't know the inner workings, but I have family that works for Sheets and things like that, and they're honestly they're very clean, good company. I get my coffee just about every morning at Sheets. So I'm
And they're
happy.
all over, especially in like the beginning of the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen them driving south.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and probably on your way up to New York. I mean, they're expanding slowly, but they start to run into other businesses like Wawa and 7-Elevens and things like that.
Mm.
So they can't really. And there's another competitor called Rudders. And I'm just giving an example of a legacy business where uh, the magic of franchising, um, just like the McDonald's brothers or Burger Kings, that helps to exponentially increase that legacy. So you get other people to do it. And what you're really doing is keeping that brand name around, but as long as that's around, people are going to, remember that legacy. And that's really what it's all about. I think millennials in our generation going forward, they didn't really, they stopped caring so much about legacy. They weren't taught legacy. No one, only the richy rich families really care about that stuff. And I think it's just a culture shift. So, and that, of course, that presents a marketing challenge on my end because you have to understand what do these new generations coming up care about, right? What do they actually want? And I think you touched on it a little bit. Uh, they're becoming more selfish. They're less patient. Um, they want things now, 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 and that, of course, that's been a problem for decades now. Things are expected to be done fast and received quickly. I want my
Immediate.
next day delivery
Yes.
from Amazon. you know, so I think I think old money is becoming a rarity.
Yeah. It saddens me because the thing is that but it's still money and we're
Yeah.
still going to need it. I actually had a conversation with someone who, you know, implied that my old way of thinking as far as quality of product was not what mattered. At least this is how I interpreted the conversation, and how branding and marketing were really the only things that were important or the most important. And yes, I agree. We are in a climate right now where with social media, branding and marketing is everything and can change the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like music. It can be the worst song, but if it's marketed the right way, and it'll just will convince you to love it, right? We've seen that with some artists. Uh, and I understand that, but then I kind of was like, but what about your own personal integrity? Does that come into well, that's a good question. How does that play into, and then does that help to leave legacy? Because apparently you can have a poor product and have the right branding and marketing and have that product exist forever and ever. Is it sustainable then, do you think?
It depends. So generally, consumers determine whether something lasts or not. And that ties right in with the law of supply and demand in economics. Let's look at. We talked about musicians last week, and there were
Yes.
a lot of comments on that. But I think, let's say, one recent song that came out within the last year was WAP. And if you know rap and hip hop, I don't need to explain what WAP means. But personal integrity, I think that one is not. It's explicitly sexual, on purpose, overtly sexual, because we want to attract a certain crowd. That artist, was that Nicki Minaj? I think. I forget who rapped that song, but it's
I'm not sure, but
now. Well, my point is that if we're talking about responsibility and integrity, as an artist and producer myself, I have a company adjacent to Cassis Media called Cassis Records, and the motto is we practice artistic responsibility. We don't publish or create anything that harms a listener's quality of life. And what I mean by that is there's so much music out there that is negative, destructive, And basically anything that's not wholesome or improves your life, I don't work with people who, you know, make that kind of music. WAP is one of those. I would never, ever, ever have a song like that because it's everywhere. It's not teaching people integrity and morality. And I mean, considering the genre, of course, it's just rife with that anymore. This isn't
Right.
90s Will Smith clean rap anymore, um, which is kind of funny to listen to now in 2021.
I like it. I still like it. It's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's considered what do you call it? You can find it now on the soft stations.
Oh, easy listening.
These
Oh
listening
my God.
stations. That's really trippy.
Yeah,
But I'm
right.
sorry, go on.
No, but I guess my point is that um, in integrity in I'm losing my train of thought. Basically, integrity in what you do and how you make that money has a direct impact on the kind of legacy you create, right? Um, we could talk about Donald Trump, and I don't get political here, but he's a real estate Mongol or whatever, and his dad was in real estate, and there's a whole documentary on this and how that was built up, and there's a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes, of course. So how did that legacy become? Well, it wasn't really built on a lot of integrity a lot of the time. So I think that's my point there is how do you build that legacy and what's it known for?
And there's cause and effect. Like karma is real. So, um, but I think it's good to be able to have a service or a brand that is good
Mm-hmm.
and then heightened with branding and marketing. I have come to that consideration that, I'm definitely a perfectionist, and sometimes I'm learning that you do need to be able to survive from whatever it is you're doing. So
Oh yeah.
sometimes excellent and greatest are not part of the packaging, and good is sometimes just good enough. But at the end of the day, I love the idea that you brought up about, yes, taking the legacy name or the brand or that family business and franchising it to brand the family name, keeping it going. So important. But once again, that's established by understanding the value of the legacy, the value of your ancestors, right? Their name is behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So in this particular family that I speak of, I actually had to say, I think this is too disturbing for me to actually speak with the family about,
Right.
because they ideally don't want to listen, and their children, their grandchildren, and I think to myself, they're not learning anything about the history, the richness of this family. They are only understanding the monetary value of what the family has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, at this rate, that really may not exist, because, the parent that is taken ill, that was kind of the patriarch, has not been functional for almost 5 years.
Mm. Yeah.
So for me, I'm looking at the dollar value saying, so in 5 years, how much of the estate has the family run through without creating a platform for this money to make money, for this fortune to make more. So the
Right.
grandchildren, if we keep going at this rate, will have nothing, and the great grandchildren, and so the empire will eventually dissolve. And or what happens often in families is that by the time, because experts were not hired for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think it's a cultural thing. I think that in the African American culture, there's so much distrust with uh, experts, that folks are willing to take the loss
Mm.
of their financial capital at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
rather than learning to create a gain. It's the most bizarre thing. But why not hire an expert? If you look at the money that you're losing and you look at the cost of an expert that can teach you how not to lose money, one is a win-win situation, the other is not. And so for me, it seems very simple and very matter of fact. But for many, many folks, it is not. And so it's kind of like I talk about, if we're not teaching our children how to run the business, how to pay the mortgage, how to pay the taxes, who we answer to, who the bank is, how to go in and speak with the banker, who the family attorney is, you know, it makes it challenging to sustain the legacy
Right.
because it's more than just what you're seeing in front of you. So in this case, it's more than just all of these hundreds of acres. It's more than just the equipment for farming. There's an education that needed to be passed down as well in order to sustain what the great great ancestor had created for this family here present in the 21st century with children and grandchildren. And unfortunately, I'm not feeling confident that those children will be able to create value based on this legacy. And that's sad. And I think we see that in the celebrity world as well. It's very intoxicating.
Hmm.
Sure, it's intoxicating for this family seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bank account. And what do you want? Immediate gratification. Spend, spend, spend. Let's go buy a house. And unfortunately, we see in the celebrity world, they learn a little too late,
Hmm.
right? It's like, oh, well, but now you're a retired basketball player. The income's not coming in. All you have is what you've made. And now you understand what to do with your money. What if you had understood that when you were making it year after year and you were at the height of your career?
Yeah.
We see a lot of that in the celebrity world.
I want.
But I believe that regular people like you and me can learn from them.
Yeah. I actually, the Shaquille O'Neal. He bought Papa John's,
Yes.
and now he has the
Yes.
Shaqaroni pizza. And I love Papa John's because they now have stuffed crust, and I didn't eat it for years, and now they have it. But that's how I learned that Shaq bought Papa John's. But he had enough money that he could just buy the franchise, and it was pretty interesting because I think he's used to doing brand sponsorships, and he's a retired basketball player, but that guy is still active with his money, and he's not just resting on his laurels. He's out there doing stuff, and he's a good example of an African American, who is actually out there doing business still and growing his net worth so he can pass it on to his kids. And I believe he has kids. I don't know
He
anything about it.
does. Whole
Yes.
family. Yes, he has a nice sized family. I'm told that they have a restaurant, I think in the state of Georgia, I believe.
That wouldn't surprise
Uh,
me. Yeah.
that where it is? I think that's where it is. Don't quote me on that. And that they are actually seen in the restaurant, like having dinner, family
Mm.
dinner before it opens, that sort of thing. But he's bringing his children along.
Mm-hmm.
His children are in the restaurant with him. He's actually working, like he goes in and performs. So it's a family business, and I encourage folks, it's really great that we work hard and we want the best for our children.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a gentleman talking the other day, and he wasn't a wealthy gentleman. I was at a doctor's office, and he's talking about how his 4-year-old daughter says she wants a vacation for her birthday, and she wanted a name brand purse, and then she wanted money to go in the purse. And he was speaking with the receptionist, and they were laughing about it. Wow, your daughter, she already knows. I can't imagine her husband.
Yeah.
And it was funny, and I was so disturbed because all I thought about is that if she's 4 and this is what she's asking, that's great. I love
Yeah.
that a young lady, so young, understands her worth, understands value, but there's a flip side to that. So please teach, as well, that value comes from dad working hard.
Mm-hmm.
That value comes from perhaps we can make an exchange for you to earn
Mm-hmm.
something, because at 4 years old, if you can ask, you can earn. Even if that just means being good in school, but just having challenges so that you understand, number one, the reciprocity, number two, the value, number three, just being able to sustain what you want. It's easy for us to want, but we need to understand that it comes from a source,
Mm-hmm.
a resource, and have respect for that resource.
Yeah, you have to teach the
So,
kids. You have to teach
yeah.
them. Otherwise, they won't know what to do when the time comes.
And so here we are in September 21st century with the family that I just named, that, are grown folks
Mm-hmm.
and are fumbling at the feet. If even there's an interest to know, that don't know what to do other than to spend, and it's reckless. And so my one question was, what have we invested in the last 5 years to help keep the family fortune going? And nothing. So yes, folks, you never want money inheritance sitting in a checking account. Number one, I think I say this every show. Please, not in a checking account. Put your money somewhere where it can make compound interest and get yourself an expert. The money that you lose will pay for the expert that you are resisting to hire.
Aren't
And
you
with
one of
that,
those
I am done.
experts? Aren't you one of those experts? Yeah.
I am
Cool.
one of those experts. I mean, I don't do all areas of finance. So, whether it's, if you want to invest in property, then get
Mm-hmm.
yourself a real estate broker. If you want to invest in stocks, then get yourself a stockbroker. If you want to invest in crypto, like, I particularly love creating wealth using compound interest through insurances and annuities and retirement plans. you know, Unfortunately, this family is a perfect example of how the parent who is taken ill set himself up for retirement. And now the children are feeding off of it. So, will the
Mm.
children be set for retirement once this inheritance is gone?
Who knows?
Yeah, something to think about. So, again, I ask, how much will it take for you to live to be 100, right? Yeah, they're lucky that and very fortunate that this parent figured that out. Have the children been paying attention? Pay attention, because I would hate to see a mass of homeless people in
Mm.
the 30th century.
Mm.
Okay, because it's coming.
There's too many of that.
It's coming. There are statistics that say that the Black American family, as a race, will be broke within the next 10 years by 2035, 2030, 2035,
Mm.
at the rate that we're going, just because of reasons that I'm speaking of. So it's real. And that is like a conversation that is happening on the back burner in the
Mm-hmm.
financial world. That the young Black Americans will be broke in the next 10 or so years. So the talk is real, but thank you so much. Um, Anything else? Any closing words, Paul?
No, just I would say take care of the old man or old woman that's coming in 50, 60 years. If you're in your 20s like me, just think of them and prepare for that because they will thank you for who you are now. So that being said,
Absolutely.
with that being said, I'm Paul, and
I'm Rhonda.
and this is business as usual. We will see you guys next week.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.